Marissa, we had questions for Clinton, but didn't have time to chase every lead. We were back in the office trying to piece the intricate details of Marissa's case together. As it was set to go to trial first, the court had ordered that the case be mediated, which happens in every case to give the defendant the chance to make a monetary offer and the plaintiff to accept or reject that offer. For Epstein, mediation was just another opportunity to play games. I had prepared Marissa for it. Our mediation took place April 5th, 2010. Rather than make an offer, Epstein wanted Marissa to walk away from her case to avoid further invasion of her life. It was Epstein's way of gauging her courage. We walked out without hesitation, not allowing Epstein to get a good read. I believed then that we were actually going to get him to trial. From my perspective, trial was the only way to go in Marissa's case because it would expose his organization. During the final preparations for trial, which was set for July, Epstein started to realize that he might not win this game of chicken and got worried. June 28th, 2010, he filed a motion practically begging for another mediation. We resisted it, knowing that trying the case would accomplish more in the end. But at Epstein's urging, the court ordered a settlement conference to take place July 6, 2010 at the federal courthouse in Miami with 92-year-old federal magistrate Judge Peter R. Palermo. Is he a magistrate or a judge? A magistrate judge. Motherfucker, you're either a judge or you're not. A magistrate is a lower judge, a tiny judge, a half judge. 92-year-old federal magistrate Judge Peter R. Palermo. Christopher Columbus was engaged in goddamn trafficking. You know, I've never seen any kind of shit like that, but I guess because America is just such a big place, I'm sure there's pockets and shadows and shit. There was that lady at Walmart that everybody had tackled, and she's apparently going to get her just desserts. And there was some 13-year-old that was kidnapped in San Luis, the Dollar General. And then here I got Tony Keith, May 5th, Saguache County. Authorities in Colorado are hoping for help from the public with locating two people who reportedly went missing while on a camping trip. Friday, the Saguache County Sheriff's Office shared the photos of Joseph Rivera and Jennifer Nelson. The pair were reportedly traveling from Ridgeway to Del Norte. Del Norte is northwest of Alamosa. So where's Joseph Rivera and Jennifer Nelson? Where did Joseph Rivera and Jennifer Nelson go? Saguache County, so that's, about an hour away from me on Colorado 17, but 17 goes all the way up and down Antonito to Saguache, and it's all the same valley. The San Luis Valley is just 6 counties. Marissa was resolute. She was not going to settle for anything. There was no amount of money that could take her off the course to trial. In light of our belief that Epstein was using this second settlement discussion as a means to intimidate her, we filed a motion on June 30th to ensure that she would not be forced to come into contact with Epstein at the settlement conference. In keeping with the no-contact order that had been entered at his plea hearing on June 30th, 2008, taking the matter very seriously, Magistrate Palermo issued an order the very next day requiring the no-contact order to remain in full effect and directing Epstein to arrive at the federal courthouse earlier than Marissa, with instructions that the parties would be dismissed separately from the settlement conference at different times. With these parameters in place, we were feeling better about our required attendance at the conference. That's I'm going to read some of the harassment that Marissa was going to get from Epstein, but it's very similar to some of the harassment that I was getting in Costilla County from Phil Greeny, Robert Pickrell, that fucking Jepson, Green Blazer Jepson piece of shit, Samuel Lee Jepson. On July 1st, 2010, just 5 days before the scheduled settlement conference, I got a frantic call from Marissa. Brad, they're trying to kill me. On her way to the grocery store, she noticed that an Infiniti SUV was following close behind her. When she left the same SUV, I think Nick Villela has something to do with some of the stuff too, began telling her in a much more aggressive manner, causing her to run off the side of Haver Hill Road in West Palm Beach. Nick Villela seems to be an unrepentant racist. He has to be a racist. He can't stand up for civil liberties. He can't stand up for homeowners' gun rights in defense of home, person, and property. It didn't take much to run her off the road because she was a relatively novice driver. I knew that because I'm the one who taught her how to drive in a parking lot in Palm Beach so she could pass her driver's license test. Nevertheless, she was scared. Well, sure, Marissa's going to the grocery store and an Infiniti SUV's fucking tailing her, following her, trying to intimidate her. Who the fuck is this Epstein goddamn connected with? The fucking mob? Is it just him? Is it one of his fucking security guards? Like, what the fuck is this crazy shit? Some private investigator pretending to do some investigation, but really just fucking stalking the shit out of her. An investigation, I think you could do 3 days, but I feel like you can't stalk a motherfucker. There's a difference between investigation and stalking. If I'm investigating, I'm around, I ask a couple questions, and then as long as there's another lead and there's another direction, keep on talking to people, keep asking questions. When I run into a brick wall, then that's when the trail goes cold. And then maybe do some research. I don't know, but then she's going to run off the side of the Haver Hill Road, and then he's like, well, I don't know about how she's a good driver. Motherfucker, you know, when you have some aggressive fucking asshole, sometimes you're just agreeable. You know, I can't stand goddamn tailgating motherfuckers. People who tailgate me, oh my God. It's like a petty, tiny little misdemeanor traffic offense, but it's an oppressor, and it's oppression, and it's dangerous. Somebody is sitting there tailing the shit out of you. If somebody is sitting there just right the fuck on your bumper, right there, just following the fuck out of you. Part of me wants to just hit the brake and say, see the dangerous situation. If a rabbit, if a kid runs in front, if a car drives, if anything happens and I need to stop, you're going to bump into me and then you're going to cause me to wreck into them. You're going to make the whole situation worse. What you're doing is bullshit. Also, I noticed that tailgaters won't pass. You have all the opportunity in the fucking world to pass, but ultimately they would rather just put pressure on you to go fucking faster, and then they're hiding behind you too like a fucking coward instead of just passing you the fuck up. So when somebody's tailgating me, you know, I don't like really reacting at all, but sometimes they get so close to you that you gotta break them a little bit, and then you might have to break them a lot. But they're tailgating you. They're getting closer and closer. I just basically, you know, say it's 65 miles per hour. I'll just, 60 miles an hour and just stay focused. Stay focused, keep looking at the center of the road, and then hope that it doesn't keep bothering me. But if I have to keep looking back at you, then I'm not that's another thing. You're making everything fucking more dangerous. You're supposed to stay, I think Kentucky said 3 or 4 or 5 seconds behind, which means you pass a tree and then count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's plenty of time. That's plenty of space. You need to give people plenty of space. If something fucking happens, that they could stop their car and you'll be able to stop your car. I've always had shitty cars, and so it's kind of forced me to always be humble. But I like getting to the store and coming back in one piece. If nobody got AK'd, there's no big 15 car pileup. If there's no trafficking, the Navajo, I got some notes here. Christopher Columbus was doing trafficking. Goddamn Charles Manson was a victim of sexual assault. He wrote a bad check when he was 15 years old, and then his punishment, according to Kentucky's penal system, was to get 3 years of penal. He got raped for 3 years. Why is Charles Manson the way he was? He wrote a bad check. He was born of some, prostitute lady and was orphaned and shit at 15, wrote a bad $20 check, and then got 3 years raped. Does that sound like justice to you? Does that sound like... That's probably what fucked Charles Manson up. You think? Christopher Columbus, that motherfucker, he, discovered America. Ooh, whippity skipped, killed 500,000 Taino people, started the slave trade, started the sex trafficking, labor, slave trade, the slave trade of slave trades. He began it all. And if you didn't get down with his fucking business, 500,000 were killed, 500,000 Taino. I mean, Hitler killed 6 million Jewish folks, 10 million overall. So he's 500,000, that's 1/20th. He's a small percentage. He's a genocidal fucking maniac. He started and then you also had the Navajo here in the San Luis Valley. The Navajo, for some reason, everybody had bought the Navajo. There was Navajo slaves all over the place. But the slave trade, the Spanish slave trade, they all were doing, I mean, that's, Columbus came out of the Spanish Inquisition, so he was doing the slave trade, they were doing the slave trade. And this is Chief Ouray. This is Chief Ouray in the Spanish settlements in the... Chief Ouray isn't a part of it, but it's Lafayette Head. Lafayette Head, 1680, Pueblo Revolt. Lafayette Head, that motherfucking sick fuck. Lafayette Head is a sick fuck, so he's into slavery. He was doing slave trading shit too. So he's doing the trafficking of slaves. So it's fucked up. It's fucked up how the fucking Catholics and the fucking Muslims and the Protestants and the Baptists, what the fuck is up with religion? What the fuck is up with people? When she got home, the guy who had followed her was parked across the street in front of her house, intermittently flashing his high beam lights into her home. Now Marissa and her grandmother were terrified. Marissa's 1-year-old daughter huddled into her mother's arms, trembling. Never mind a trial. Marissa thought that she was going to be killed for standing up to Epstein for too long. I told her to call the police. While I called Michael Fiston, by the time the police arrived, they actually found Epstein's investigators sitting in his car. In the driveway. In the driveway. They told him he had to leave her private property. Oh, I thought I was allowed to park in her driveway. So what's his fucking name? What's his fucking name? Mike positioned his car so we're not even saying who the fuck this guy is. Why would they protect this fucking piece of shit? But this is talk about felony menace and he's stalking. That's criminal shit. Investigate. Of course you're supposed to stay across the fucking road. You're inside her driveway. You've been stalking her all day. You ran her off the fucking road. And now you're in her fucking driveway. She ran off the road. So that means she got in her head. The stalker got in her head and was able to drive her off the fucking road. That fucking pickerel. Man. If I had a badge, I'd be allowed to defend myself, right? With no questions asked, but since I'm an American citizen, then I'll have to prove my case. I have to prove my innocence. It's not innocent till proven guilty. You're guilty till proven innocent. So, realizing that the police weren't going to do more, my investigator parked his car between Epstein's. Also, these fucking fuckers, they're fucking sick as fucking. They're criminals fucking. They sit there and game the damn system the whole fucking time. The house blocking the headlights. In fact, Mike positioned his car so he could shine his own headlights into Epstein's investigator's car. Good for Mike Fiston. At the end of the shine-off, Mike was left with no choice but to take Marissa to my office in the middle of the night. Before checking her into a hotel where we could keep her safe, we drafted a motion to inform the court of Epstein's intimidation. You drew up a motion. We were going to file the next day as Mike was leaving the hotel. Why didn't you say who the fucking guy's name is, man? Whoever this author is. Was this Bradley J. Edwards? As Mike was leaving the hotel where he had just dropped Marissa off, he saw Epstein's investigator walking into the hotel looking for her. We called Marissa and had her walk down the back stairs while Epstein's investigator was waiting in the lobby with my investigator. We were finally able to help her escape from that hotel into the car with another one of our investigators, who then took her to another hotel and watched her for days until the mediation was set to begin. Even though Marissa was now in a safe location, she was afraid for the safety of her daughter and her grandmother. Her entire attitude had changed for good reason. She now wanted the case to be over at all costs. Lynn and Courtney were already scared to death. Knowing what Marissa was going through was frightening them as well. Both were calling to ask if Epstein was coming after them next and whether they were in danger. We told Lynn and Courtney to be in Miami with us on the day of Marissa's settlement conference. That way we knew they would all be safe. We had been excited that a trial would finally make many of the details about Jeffrey Epstein public. You know, he's a nasty son of a bitch, but he fucking, goddamn, how many people have we figured out is in contact with this fucking sick fuck? How many people? How many people? I had a list. What the fuck? Yeah, Chris Tucker, Bill Gates, Bill Clinton. Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump. The prince, the anti-prince, right? Andrew, whatever. Chris Tucker. I mean, these are just people associated with him. Noam Chomsky, Woody Allen, what the fuck, Wall Street Journals, and that CIA rag, Bin Laden. Didn't Bin Laden read a bunch of Chomsky? But the CIA? The CIA? Why is the CIA and all the presidents talking to this fucking guy? Why is all the rich and powerful motherfucking people, he's got that pleasure island over there, motherfuckers. So many goddamn motherfuckers are connected with Epstein's. I can't stand that our oligarchy, our plutocracy gets away with war crimes. Our oligarchy, plutocracy gets away with fucking anything and everything. Whatever the fuck. Whatever the fuck. Christopher Columbus, did he ever get his just desserts? Did Lafayette Head, did he ever get his just desserts? That motherfucker did some shit. He married a 12-year-old in Illinois. And then he came to Conejos, Colorado, and became a New Mexico legislator. He was like one of the main agents for like the federal government and shit. Lafayette Head owned slaves. Fucking Lafayette fucking Head. That bitch ass piece of shit. That nasty ass perverted fucking oppressor molester piece of shit. So you got Lafayette Head, Christopher Columbus, Epstein. So the shit happens. The shit goes on. Thank God for Chris Hansen. Thank God for Chris Hansen. And you sons of bitches threw him in jail because he what? He skipped out on a subpoena. He didn't respond to a subpoena. Stupid. Stupid. So now they're all in Miami. By now, let's see. But by now all three girls had experienced serious forms of his intimidation, and all three were ready for the fight to be over. Our clients were frightened when we arrived in Miami. When we entered the federal courthouse, because of the no contact order, we were taken to a private elevator, I didn't even know existed, despite having been to that courthouse many times by now. When we got out of the elevator, we were greeted by Judge Palermo's assistant, who looked at Marissa and promised to personally make sure that she didn't have to see Epstein. Oh, wow. So Marissa was still scared, but she was also comforted by the precautions that Judge Palermo and his staff had taken. When Judge Palermo came into the room to introduce himself, we quickly warned him about Epstein. Honestly, we didn't have much confidence because we felt that no one could actually influence him. He did whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted. No judge or anyone else was going to change that. Judge Palermo must have sensed our skepticism of him and related it in part to his age, because he sharply responded, "You don't have to worry about me being intimidated. Manuel Noriega sat right there in the same chair where Epstein will be sitting. And don't think for a second that I'm going to get worn out by this process. Last year when I was 91, I did 91 push-ups every day. This year I do 92. As he finished the last word, he dropped to the floor right there and began doing push-ups just to prove the point. His grit reminded him so much of Papa that I knew he was right for the job. Knowing what was at stake, Palermo conducted the opening statement of the settlement conference, sitting at his desk in his office with Epstein and his attorney sitting directly across from him. Marissa, Paul, Cassell, Steve, Jaffe, and now we're in the conference room that connected to Palermo's office. In order to speak to all parties at once while ensuring that Marissa did not have to see Epstein's face, I sat in the doorway between the conference room and the office with Paul behind me and Marissa inside the next room at the opposite end of the table. She was close enough to hear, but far enough to feel safe. Judge Palermo made it clear right out of the gate that he would not tolerate any potential intimidation, which is why he was positioned the parties as he had. Epstein's attorney immediately attempted to interject, but was met by Judge Palermo holding his hand up to stop the attorney from talking. Palermo didn't say a word. He put his head in his hand and paused for an uncomfortable period of time. Steve quietly asked if I thought the judge had fallen asleep. After at least 30 seconds, Palermo looked up straight at Epstein, who was sitting 4 feet in front of him. I've read the recent motion that the plaintiff filed in this case. I understand that certain events unfolded resulted in the lawyers having to take this girl away from her child and her home. I'm thinking about throwing you in jail. Epstein looked amazed. He couldn't believe that someone would speak to him that way. Judge Palermo was dead serious. For the first time, Epstein looked like he knew he wasn't in control. Everyone in the room sensed that this wasn't going to end well for him. There came a point when Epstein said he was making a good faith effort to settle Marissa's case, but that it didn't make sense for him to do so unless Courtney and Lynn settled their cases too. No doubt Epstein planned to use this as another reason to try to postpone the trial, but this move was predictable. We called our investigator who was waiting outside with Courtney and Lynn and told him to bring them to the front of the courthouse. When I walked back upstairs with them, Judge Palermo had a big smile on his face. Palermo got all 3 cases settled. Courtney, Lynn, and Marissa were relieved. My law partners were happy, but I was disappointed. I'd put so much time in getting ready for this trial. Now it was gone. Most people thought I won that round, but I didn't see it that way. Still, while Epstein thought it was over, I was not about to let it go. As a consolation in preparing for Marissa's trial, we had found 2 additional victims who were going to testify as witnesses when Courtney, Lynn, Marissa's cases settled on July 6, 2010. These witnesses became clients who wanted to pursue their own claims against Epstein, so we picked up where we left off, immediately filed a lawsuit for one of the women, and went at him again. Gaming the system. So, more fun coming up. I mean, what the fuck can you say? Moses, goddamn Moses, killed everybody, all the Midianites. He murdered all the Midianites, but he said for the girls, all the females who had never been with a man, to kidnap them and keep them for yourself. So, trafficking happens. It's an egregious fucking thing. Is Andrew Tate fucking trafficking? Not exactly. He's getting women to go in front of the cam and get some work, right? Go do some work. And then he's just acting like a fucking pimp. He's acting like a, jackal, a jackass. But trafficking. There's, what was it? Gates, what, he took a 17-year-old across state lines or something? Trafficking. If there was, some kind of, but if it's just like driving somebody across state lines, I don't know. Trafficking, it's like slavery. When I think of trafficking, it's like slavery. Trafficking is a big fucking deal. And when I think of slavery, I think of the auction blocks, and I think of the whips, and I think of the whole fucking, process. There's a whole organization. There's a whole, criminal organization to the thing. So human trafficking, it is for sex and labor. And we need to put a nip that shit in the bud. If it's in America, anywhere. In America, in the world, we gotta nip that fucking shit in the bud. Everywhere. So it has happened in the past. And I've heard about it happening around, over there and over there and over there. I've never seen anything like it, and I hope I never do. I mean, wouldn't that be crazy to come up to like an auction block? An auction block where they're just selling, men, women, and children to who the fuck ever for the person for the top dollar? Lincoln walked by the auction block and said he was going to take a swing at that as hard as he could. I'm going to get rid of that. No, I'm going to get rid of that. So, yeah, that's pretty much just want to talk about Marissa. And it's illegal, too. It's very, very illegal. I mean, there's a bunch of laws. You can't run a house of child prostitution. In Colorado, no running of a house of child. You can't run the house, and you can't engage. You can't buy or sell. I mean, basically, just use common sense. Keep your damn hands to yourself, and nobody's going to have any fucking problems, right? Fucking Lafayette Head, 1861. He replaced Kit Carson as the first agent. He hired Ouray for $500 a year. He trafficked the Navajo. The Navajo got trafficked by their brown brothers, but the Spanish and Lafayette Head, he was both, I think, a Coloradan politician and a New Mexican politician. Lafayette Head, Conejos. I wonder how much culture Lafayette Head fed to the culture of Conejos County today. How much shit today is the same as the way Lafayette fucking Head had it back then. Shivington killed all those Cheyenne and Arapaho. It was 150, 1864. Anyways, I'm going to do an Ouray. Stop hurting people. Stop committing crimes, you pieces of shit. Coming up next, Ouray, Chief of the Utes, a fascinating story of Colorado's most famous and controversial Indian chief by P. David Smith.